Hey, you watching right there. Do you want to build a whole identity based on advocating for races and other groups of people that you're too afraid to live in a neighborhood with? Do you want to completely abandon critical thinking for the rest of your life and replace any sense of logic or thought with just weaponized words like racist and transphobic and xenophobic, just so you can trigger people who don't know what you're talking about? Hey, do you want to lose a debate against someone with 3 subscribers and then pursue legal action against them when they upload a screen recording of the conversation because in that conversation you look like a fucking idiot? Well, my friend, if you want to do these things, or like some have, if you've already done these things, you might be a liberal. Now, I'm not going to assume like I said, 3 people subscribing to my channel are going to know what I'm talking about. So I guess I'll just get into it because this is a video that I really shouldn't have to make. This is incredibly stupid, incredibly childish, and also, incredibly avoidable, as you'll see in a second. But, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to pick a fight with me on the internet, I guess even though he thinks I'm like 16 years old for some reason, I'm not 16 years old, and generally speaking, I'm pretty good at just kind of keeping my mouth shut when it's good for me. But this is the internet. This is internet politics, and you're watching Minecraft gameplay footage right now. So, I think we can both be we can both treat this with a little less maturity than we should. So I think it was a week ago. I was having a conversation. So I'm trying to get into the YouTube debate thing. I've been probably for the past 2 or so weeks. I've just been kind of in my free time, just debating liberals, finding people I disagree with, and just kind of, bouncing thoughts off their head. I try to be pretty respectful, not because it's like an axiom I have or something, but just because that's just kind of how I'm tempered. I don't know, the whole idea of, getting upset at people in real life, but also on the internet, is just kind of, unless it's something that's like, I don't know, if you like punch my dog in the face or something, then I'm probably gonna have a problem with you. But, if you're just being rude on the internet or even in real life, if you just, keep, interrupting, or you're just kind of bad at listening or something like that, I'm not gonna, it's not really worth my trouble to, get my fucking blood pressure going because of it. Anyway, so I think it was last week. I don't know what day it was. It could have been exactly a week ago today. I'm not sure. But anyway, I found, I was going to say a gentleman, but I've done some more research and I'm 99% sure this is a transgender man, which, I'll just say woman as far as that's concerned. But I found this person. I'm going to try to not use gendered language referring to them because I'm pretty sure their gender identity will say one thing, and what God gave them in between their legs will say something else. But that's beside the point. I found this person online on YouTube, excuse me, and we had a little. I wouldn't even really call it a debate. I'd say it a conversation. We talked about race, we talked about Trump, we talked about politics, we talked about stuff like that. Just modern American hot button issues that I guess 2 people across the aisle would kind of just first thing that kind of come up. I think a conversation was probably in total maybe like two or so hours, something like that, maybe a little less than that. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this person did end up pursuing legal action after this debate. So I'm going to try my best not to say their name or give any sort of identifying information. I'd say because I wouldn't say scared, but I am definitely a little bit cautious just because I know this person is so much of a sniveling coward that they will happily weaponize the YouTube terms of service against people they don't like. So, and they're going to do it on this video. Like, I already know they're going to do it on this video, but yeah, I guess I'll just give a little I can't talk, sorry. I'll leave a little guesswork as to who exactly I'm talking about, just to, I guess, cover myself. But anyway, talking to this person, it was they kept interrupting. They kept trying to get me in these like gotchas and stuff. They keep making like weird, making faces at the camera while they're talking, even though we're having an audio conversation, so I can't see them making the faces. Just kind of like stuff you'd expect from someone who hasn't really talked to a lot of people they disagree with. The kind of person who will say a bunch of brave shit on the internet, and then like when they're actually talking to someone in real life, or even like on a video call or something, they'll completely change demeanor because they don't actually know how to deal with confrontation, which is fine. But anyway, which, like I said, I can deal with people like that pretty well. And at the end of the day, if you're not physically harming me or you're not like, I mean, I suppose there's something you could say that really would like piss me off, but like you have to really like know me personally in a way that a stranger on the internet isn't going to know me. You have to know me personally to know what those things are. You can call me a stupid pussy coward bitch who doesn't know anything about politics and doesn't have a large social media following. And like, I just kind of don't like, I don't really care, man. Like it's whatever. Especially, I mean, if you're going to say that I have a, small social media following or something, I mean, that's objectively true. So it's fine. Anyway, we have this conversation. And again, I'm not going to go into the super duper details. Just because I'm not trying to give away too much personal identifying information, but long story short, I upload the conversation to my YouTube channel with a clickbaity thumbnail and a clickbaity title. May or may not have been invoking imagery and the name of someone who was not involved in the conversation just for the sake of clout. Which again, I mean, it's the internet, bro. Like, I don't really know what you expect me to do. It's the fucking Kali Yuga people. At the end of the day, I mean, YouTube is as much as I spend time on YouTube and as much as I'm trying to build a following on YouTube, it is, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a bad place, man. Like, it's full of clickbait. It's full of, influencers who are fine with, selling degeneracy to children so they can get paid by their sponsors. It's a bad place. And at the end of the day, if you want to do well on YouTube and you don't just want to have a bunch of weird, like, autistic morons subscribing to you, right? Like, if you want to actually break out into the broader scene, I guess, you have to be a little, you have to make clickbait, you know what I mean? Not all the time, but like, you have to, you have to, if you're reporting on war, for example, and like you're reporting on a war where nothing is happening and nothing is going to happen anytime soon, and it's just kind of, compared to how things were, kind of boring, right? Your thumbnails and your descriptions of your video and your titles of your videos are probably not going to reflect that, right? You're probably going to have, again, you're not going to, I mean, you may or may not lie, I'm not sure, but you're going to pepper in some stuff to make it seem like more is going on than there is, right? And that's exactly what I did. I said some white lies. I mean, at the end of the day, and I told this to the person in question, I took it as a joke. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like, if I ask you why the chicken crossed the road, I'm not actually talking about an actual chicken or an actual road. I'm using language for another reason. So that's what I was doing in this situation. It's kind of people who weren't there in situations that didn't happen. I'm saying that they did in the video so that you click on it and then you probably get mad at me after you click on it. But you clicked on it and then my engagement goes up and that's the whole point. So anyway, upload the video and see, I'm not going to keep referring to them as this person. I guess I'll refer to them as Mr. Poop. I guess I'll just refer to them as Mr. Poop. So Mr. Poop, almost like immediately after, or it feels like almost immediately after I'm done uploading the video, Mr. Poop comments and throws all these like playground insults that he didn't have the backbone to like say, even over voice, not even over video call, not even real life, over voice. He didn't like, he didn't even have the nerve to say that over voice, but he has all these playground insults. He's saying that I'm like abusing his trust and I'm doing all this, excuse me, her, sorry, or it, whatever. Has all this stuff. And at the end of the day, dude, like I said, I read it and like, I'm just like, all right, whatever. Like you can talk shit on the internet. That's fine. So I don't really think much of it. And the video, I mean, for what it's worth, the video did get more engagement than I'm used to, just because like I said, I did do a little bit of clickbait, a little bit of, bait and switch, little YouTube shenanigans, as it were. But the person comments and is essentially just freaking the fuck out, having a complete mental breakdown in the comments. Which, again, I don't take that seriously. I ignore it. I go about my life. I go to work. I come home. I run errands. I do, I do what I do. I have things that I do besides just uploading Minecraft content to YouTube. And I think it was 2 or 3 days later, Mr. Poop comments again, and with absolutely no ambiguity whatsoever. Oh, Jesus Christ. With no ambiguity whatsoever, threatens legal action against me in the form of a copyright strike. Or I think that's what, I mean, I don't really know the terminology of it, but, some sort of takedown of some sort. Because I'm not really, I mean, I guess I used their content insofar as it was a conversation that they streamed, that I was also recording the conversation that they were streaming, and I guess to the untrained eye, it looks like I just like downloaded their video or something. And I did use the like while we were having the conversation, I did use the video that was generated by that stream, so you can see Mr. Poop in the video. You can see them talking. So I guess there is a little bit of a every slanderous pile of bullshit does have a glimmer of truth to it. So anyway, so Mr. Poop comments on my video, threatens legal action against me, and then tells me to email him, and is like freaking out that like I didn't email him and that like I should have known what his email address is, even though it literally does not say his email address anywhere on his channel, or her channel, excuse me. So anyway, so we have a conversation. I locate her on Discord. They don't reach out to me. I reach out to her on Discord, and essentially I'm like, why the fuck are you chimping out over this? Like, calm down. And yeah, I mean, it kind of just, it didn't really go anywhere productive from there. This person clearly, is on some sort of moral high horse. So when they think that someone else did something wrong and that person doesn't think so, they kind of just don't have any, they don't have any way of like seeing any nuance in that situation. It's just kind of like they determined that I was a bad person, they were good, and therefore, like, if they want to like file a lawsuit against me, then they're like in the right because that's just who they are. Which again is stupid. It's dumb. It's not a very favorable, well-becoming personality trait. But you have a God-given right to be a dumb piece of shit, and that's what it is. So anyway, and I'm not even. Yeah. Anyway, so I have a conversation with Mr. Poop. It doesn't go well. Like I said, he's just like kind of just having a mental breakdown. Like every time I write something to him, he'll just like write like 2 paragraphs about how like. I don't even fucking, like, I'm not even going to pull up the conversation because it's not even worth it. Like, if you're having a conversation, someone writes a line and then you write like 2 paragraphs, like, that's usually a pretty good indicator that the person writing 2 paragraphs is wrong, right? It's like if you're having a conversation, like if you're texting a girl, right, and one out of the 2 of you is like writing all these paragraphs and like, all these like emojis and stuff, and then the other person's like, yep, okay, haha, that was funny. Okay, cool. Like, all these like monosyllabic, responses and stuff like that. Usually the person who's writing the paragraphs is losing in that situation, right? Like if a guy is texting a girl, the guy's sending all these paragraphs and the girl's just like essentially just acknowledging that she understands what he's saying. The guy's probably, wasting his time, and he's probably kind of, as the youths would say, simping, right? Anyway, so we have this conversation, and at the end of all of this, I thought we reached an agreement. I did everything that, like, as far as YouTube is concerned, at least I thought, as far as, YouTube is concerned, you're supposed to do. But yeah, I mean, Mr. Poop was still upset. And then, lo and behold, Mr. Poop copyright strikes my video. I think I found out this morning, if I'm not mistaken. I woke up and there was a little like prohibition sign next to the video. And I realized that Mr. Poop had successfully copyright striked me, successfully linked his video of the original conversation in his copyright strike, and made it seem like I just stole his video and re-uploaded it, which again, I didn't, but like to the untrained eye, be it like the fucking YouTube content moderator that was looking at this, or like the AI like algorithm that was doing it, it makes sense. And at the end of the day, bro, like I'm not like, cool, it's a video, I don't care. But the reason this is interesting to me the reason this is on my nerves, because it is on my nerves, it isn't because I lost the video. That doesn't really matter that much, because it only had a couple hundred views. It wasn't really that significant of a video. Obviously, if you're talking, someone with single-digit subscribers, obviously by my standards it's doing very well, but I can do without the video. And plus, like I said, the guy in the video, like, it's the conversation we have is really just him looking like a blabbling idiot for an hour and a half, me trying to make my point, and then to be honest, like, I stopped him when he was up interrupting me a good amount of times to be like, dude, like, shut the fuck up, like, you don't know how to have a conversation. But I did that way less than I should have, because in the video, I mean, it's probably 75% of it is him just talking essentially to himself. just using, like I said, like weaponized words, right? Like, oh, you're being racist and transphobic and like, xenophobic or whatever, which like, okay, like, the sky's blue. Like, I don't give a shit. But anyway, and plus, like I said, I mean, if you have to keep just kind of interrupting and you kind of have to keep just saying shit, to make it seem like you're kind of getting the upper hand in interaction or something like that, you're probably not, right? Like if you're kind of able to make your point succinctly and like kind of without just drabbling on and using all these like emotional appeals and stuff like that, usually that means that you're doing good in the conversation. Anyway, though, the reason this irritates me is because as a society, we need to stop snitching on each other. And I think anyone who has any moral backbone or even just kind of basic human intuition knows this. I think it was Mark Fisher in Capitalist Realism. Mark Fisher, if he wasn't a Marxist, he was like a far leftist. But he was very smart, and I know being on the right side of things, pun intended, you wouldn't expect me to find someone like Mark Fisher inspiring, but I do. And I don't know I'm not going to pull up a quote for what he says, but essentially one of his main points in Capitalist Realism, is that as a society, if we snitch on each other, right? If our first, line of defense against people, have doing these like perceived slights to us is just to find a third party and to just sort it out like that, we will not trust each other, and we will essentially just worship capitalism instead of worshiping literally anything else, which would be better to worship, right? If I can't like work out a solution with another person who I disagree with, or even not work out a solution, but if I can't, deal with that in one way or another without having, law enforcement or like the law or like, a fucking company that we work for or something like that, if I can't do that without getting some higher up like third party involved, you're not a serious person, right? Like you're not a serious, like you can't think you're going to do anything with regards to like politics or with regards to like, influencing people or something like that, right? If you're essentially just going to like bitch out and just like, tell a higher up every time something doesn't go your way. 'Cause that's what children do. And children are great. I like children. I want to have children, later in life, but we don't let children make important decisions because they have to ask us about that, right? They have to ask an adult about that. And yeah, man, it's just, I know that the title of this video is "Liberals Are Not a Good Person." This is kind of what I was getting at. Is that if you, I guess I should, there's other people who are bad people besides liberals, but I think one of the biggest litmus tests for if you are a good person or not is if you can stand on your own business. Like that's a pretty good indicator of if you're a good person or not. So for example, right, if I get into an argument with you and I feel like I lost, and my first response is to go find a friend of mine and come back with the friend who, might be, better spoken than I am, or might be more knowledgeable or whatever. If my first response after I, come out of a conversation feeling like I got, I got a fool made out of me, right? If my first thing I do in that situation is to just find someone else and have them, do what has to be done on my behalf, you don't have a backbone. Like you don't have anything going for you. And that's, again, like that's, if you're talking about children, if you're talking about, I would say if you're talking about women, which again, this is kind of a weird situation because the person I'm talking about is a woman who identifies as a man. So I'm not really sure how that fits into here, but like, yeah, and I'm absolutely right. If I walk up to a woman on the street and I steal her purse, she absolutely has the moral imperative and, usually would have, it would just be objectively the best thing for her to do to like find someone who's right, like faster and stronger than her and be like, hey, that guy stole my purse, go get it, But if you're a dude, or if you're just an adult even, and that's what you do, and you actually see that as a good way of solving problems, number one, you're just a bitch. Like first, like you're just a coward, which again, like I wouldn't use the word coward to describe a woman or a child because we don't have the same expectations for them that we do of like, like men in society, right? But no, if you're a man in society and like when something irritates you, you just complain to your higher ups. Like you're a coward. Like just that's what you are. But number two is that sort of attitude of like, just let like, if I can't deal with something, I'll just have some procedure that's like bigger than me deal with it. That really is at the end of the day what liberalism is, as far as I'm concerned. Like I think, and this, for example, you have the issue of religion, right? That generally speaking, as the, as just a basic understanding would have it, the non-liberal understanding of religion is that if religion is either true or if it's like something that should be followed and is something that's good for people, then the non-liberal take on religion would be, yeah, we should promote religion. Like, we should promote it in the government, we should promote it in society, we should promote it in families, we should promote it on a personal level, we should have podcasts about it, like all this stuff, right? The liberal understanding of religion is, oh, well, we need to have procedures in place so that your religion doesn't make people uncomfortable, right? Like, we can't have religion in schools, for example, because, someone in, Billy's class might be a Muslim or an atheist or a Jew or something, and, then there'll be a school board meeting about it, and then it'll be all this stuff, and people will be uncomfortable, and people are going to write to their elected representatives about it, and it's going to be a mess, and then, it'll impact society, and, like, that's liberalism. That's what that is. Like, if you can't go to school, hear religious doctrine that you don't like, and then after that make a decision to either go somewhere else or to just suck it up, like, you're a liberal. Like, that's what a liberal is. And, like, I guess the school example is kind of weird because, like, no, you're 100%, someone would be 100% right. Like, if a child, like a little kid went to school, a little kid who was being raised to be like, a Protestant and went to school and, heard all these Catholic talking points, it's completely, natural for that kid to, like, freak out and, like, maybe, try to get a third party involved or something because they're a child again. But when adults act like that, when adults defer to procedures as, like, a principle or as, like, something that they just, like, innately do when, like, problems happen, that adult is a liberal, and that behavior is in a lot of ways what's fucking wrong with this country now, man. And again, you can just see it with everything. You can see it with the economy, you can see it with race, you can see it with immigration, you can see it with you can see it with, like, social issues with, like, transgenderism and stuff like that. Like at the end of the day, the issue of transgenderism, right? All this boils down to is you have, again, most of the time they're children, right? Who will just have these wacky ideas that don't make any fucking sense, that, like, it is the job of an adult to be like, nope, that's not how we do things, stop it, right? Which instead, when you have liberal adults who, when their kid comes home and says that they're transgender or something, the liberal adults' first thing to do is, oh, let's send you to a gender, specialist. Let's defer this, right? Let's defer this to someone higher up who knows more about this stuff, who can just, solve all our problems, and I don't have to think about it. Which, again, that's cowardice. Like, that's just, you look up the word fucking cowardice in the dictionary, it's a picture of a guy, walking into a gender clinic with his child will show up. But, there's so much fucking wrong with it, man. There's, like, if you don't know what you believe in to such an extent that when someone does something you don't like, you have to bitch and whine about it to someone else, that, like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, just, like, fuck you. And yeah, that's just kind of what that's what I'm not really, I said I was upset about it or something. I'm not. I honestly, I really kind of just don't care. It's more just that, like, it's just so ridiculously obvious to me when someone behaves in a way where they think they're morally superior to everyone else, but at the same time, they don't know what they believe in, which is, again, like, liberals in religion is the perfect example of this, right? Liberals will go around telling people, no, you can't have religion in schools. No, you can't, think that, homosexuality or abortion or, like, eating certain kinds of foods is wrong because of your religion, because you can't empirically prove that. And we have, like, Richard Dawkins and, like, the scientific community telling us that, which, like, they know more than us. And, like, so there's that. that's just a really toxic, like, awful way of looking at things. Because at the end of the day, if you're that liberal saying that thing about religion, you're not saying anything intelligent. You're not saying anything smart. All you're saying is, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, I don't want you to have that either, right? It's like you're a crab in a bucket, right? Which the liberal is at the bottom of the bucket because they're a weak transgender idiot, and they can't do anything because they're fucking stupid. And instead of just staying there and just minding their own business, they have to look at all of the people who have their own ideas, who have their own way of doing things, who may or may not align with the people at the bottom of the bucket. The liberals at the bottom of the bucket, rather than just letting that happen, they will prefer that everyone stays as, like, miserable and, like, just kind of vacuous and just kind of not, like, applicable, right? Liberals will prefer the world to be like that because they will think that everyone is as, you know, confused and miserable as them. And that's, I mean, again, if you want to call it narcissism, you want to call it psychopathy, you want to call it just being a fucking asshole, like whatever word you want to use for it. I mean, I don't really like all this pop, you know, psychology stuff, but yeah, I mean, that's really just the problem of liberalism, that if your politics is just leave it up to people who know better than me, that you're a liberal, and you shouldn't, like, you shouldn't, like, have any say in how anything works at all. Because it's okay to not know about things. It's okay to not know about a lot of things, but, like, at the same time, don't talk about those things, right? And, like, if you really need to know about something, then learn it. But don't, like, I know this was kind of a tangent, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, bro, if you're involved or you want to be involved in politics or something, you know, adjacent to politics, and you're a snitch, get the fuck out. Like, you are everything that is wrong with the world. You're everything that's wrong with society. I feel like most people learned this when they were, like, kids and they were in school, and, like, right, like, you know, because kids, like, they don't have filters, or at least they don't have filters in the same way that adults do. So I mean, this is kind of ironic considering what I said about children earlier, but, like children, right, will be, I mean, at least where I grew up, will be very vicious to snitches, right? Because snitching is weird and antisocial and bad, right? So I think, you know, most kids will learn pretty early on that, like, even if theoretically, even if you have to as an adult to, like, protect yourself or something, it's not, like, cool, and it's not a good thing to do, and you shouldn't do it. And again, there's an exception for children. There's an exception for, you know, women and stuff like that. Obviously, if you're disabled or something and someone, like, walks up to you and kicks you in the face, I do not expect you to just keep quiet about that. You know, you probably should, you know, get some help, because that's not okay. But no, I mean, if you're gonna call yourself, like, any, especially when the economy is involved, right? If you're a capitalist, like, you can go fuck yourself. But, like, like, if you're gonna call yourself, like, any sort of alternative view on the economy, right? Be it if you're a socialist, if you're a communist, if you're a fascist, if you're a fucking distributist, if you're, like, you know, all this stuff, right? A corporatist. If you call yourself any of those things, and at the same time, if someone on the internet offends you, you threaten, like, capitalist legal action against them in the form of, like, copyright fucking violations or something, you have absolutely no right to be taken seriously by anyone. And I genuinely hope that you're not, because you suck. And fuck you, and I hope you don't have children, because then we don't have to worry about little people with those same ideas running around. Which fortunately is what's happening in this country, because, you know, because liberals think it's, you know, politically incorrect to have children, and that, you know, if you do have children, you should just castrate them so that they don't develop toxic masculinity or something. So at the end of the day, I mean, the people who own the future are people who aren't liberals. People who own the future are people who actually believe in something and actually, you know, have a backbone, which I guess is not very common nowadays, at least on fucking leftist debate spaces. But I digress. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Goodbye.